Dive on it.
This is twice now the Celtics have been first to the floor. They try to
Save with Horford. Unbelievable.
Boston first to the floor. So good.
Brown fakes, fires up the three. Bang! Tatum dives on the floor. Everybody dives. Jaylen Brown with the flush. Blocked by Porzingis. He's doing it all. Tatum spinning, driving, layup. Got it. Washington drives. Blocked by White. Oh, what a block from Derek White.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, one Wayne Spoonie. Spoonie, how you doing, man?
I'm just doing wonderful. I've been planning my vacation to the Gulf of America upcoming. So
Nice.
no, I'm doing great, Ben. The Celtics are back. That makes me very happy. It's still winter here. We got snow today. So thank you, Celtics, for not putting me in a dark, dark mood. So that's great. How are you doing, man? It's been a while.
Yeah, less drama with the Australian federal government. But luckily, we've got the Celtics to bring us back down to earth, which is what we're here to talk about today. Like tonight, we're going to get into, are the Celtics properly back? We think they might be, Spoonie. And then later, some Torrey Craig talk. Craig is interesting because I know it's Craig in the States. It's Craig here in Australia. And like when we signed Drew Holiday and I called him Drew Bledsoe for the first 2 weeks, I'm going to struggle with Torrey Craig as I'm learning to pronounce. We're going to get into Torrey Craig or blank. Like where does he fit in amongst the Celtics rotation? But first, couple of minutes on the Celtics win in Miami last night. Check out Celtics Late Night with Jake Eisenberg and Greeny last night on our YouTube channel if you want the full breakdown of that game. But Spoonie, 103-85, a shellacking. Heat culture, dead. Jason Tatum, very much alive. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, Tatum was absolutely incredible in that second half, especially the third quarter. He's starting to do this thing where he just decides that we need to win the game, and then he just does it. And I've said it before, but that is the final level of superstardom. When you can just basically like, all right, give me the ball. I'm going to win this game for us. You have such control over like the outcome on a possession by possession basis that you can impose your will on the game whenever the hell you feel like it. Right? It's not like, okay, this guy's on the court, I can attack them. It's like, doesn't matter. I will find a way to attack this defense. It might be with my passing. Last night it was by flying downhill nonstop and then getting some threes to drop. And it was just like the Heat had nothing for him. And like without Tyler Hero, that Miami Heat team is not like full of terrible defensive players. I mean, it's not like he was going at Duncan Robinson every play.
Mm-hmm.
No one could stay in front of him. Wiggins couldn't stay in front of him. And like you couple that with every starter was in double figures. Derek was the lowest scorer at 13. So he's sharing the ball, didn't get a lot of assists, but it was just a wonderful performance from JT. And like the whole team sharing the ball. It was a very Celtics basketball performance, if that makes sense, Ben.
Yeah, 53 attempts from three as well. And like only 32% on those looks, but just classic Missoula ball, like just get those attempts up and let the math do the rest. But 32% doesn't like tell the story because I feel like we took all our misses in the first quarter, Spoonie, and then just like figured out, like honed in on, you've got to put that orange ball through the basket and then figured it out. So it's good to see those attempts up. And then we took care of the ball as well, just 6 turnovers, kept the Heat from getting out in transition, which is great because they have next to no half-court offense aside from maybe Bam. So that was good to see. Sam Hauser as well, starting in this game, 5 of 8 from 3. Love to see that. We're gradually and naturally transitioning to like into why all the reasons the Celtics are back. So we're going to try and hold off on that and get into that in the second segment. But you mentioned it, Jason Tatum, like 20 points in the third quarter in this one after dropping 19 in the third against the Knicks and scoring at 3 levels, like pull-up threes, step-back threes, mid-range pull-ups, scoring at the rim at will. He's just playing with so much confidence right now. I've since rewatched most of the game, but I was listening and slightly watching this game on a sneaky AirPod at work at my desk and just like trying not to like shriek like a little girl over my excitement of Jason Tatum in this one. Just when he's locked in. And Eddie House mentioned it on the post-game show. Like he just has this kind of new energy about him, JT, that we haven't necessarily seen for long stretches, or really even like microcosms in his career where he's so like physical and he's so energetic and he's like screaming after makes, and he's on the bench screaming after successful makes from like guys like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hazard as well. Like he just has this sort of new leadership, like energy, strong boy energy about him that I don't think we've seen through long stretches before. Are you picking up on that as well, Spoonie? Or am I just grasping at straws here, hoping for a stretch of success from the C's?
No, he was like flexing and screaming in the fourth quarter in like a 23-point game. He like never does that shit in the playoffs even. So he knows it's crunch time, right? Like this is the time where we need to get our shit together. Like we got our Costa out of the way. It was 2 months long. It was painful, but it is time to start rounding into playoff form. And like he hates Miami. Like he really
Yes.
hates Miami. And like he was going, the way he was dominating every defender in front of him physically is like, it's not just the fact that he can do that from a physical standpoint. You have to mentally be ready to do that. Like going at Andrew Wiggins, who is like sized to Jason Tatum, is very difficult to do, you know, for 15 possessions in an NBA game. So you can just tell like he's done with the bullshit. Whoever called him soft, the softest superstar in the NBA.
Brandon Jennings.
Yeah, Brandon Jennings. Yes, thank you, Brandon Jennings. Because it's unleashed this like alpha version of Tatum that I'm not sure where this is headed, but I'm very much going to enjoy the ride. So I think you're spot on. Like he's just not that vocal usually, and he was like ripping off like primal screams after every layup and dunk last night. It was crazy.
Yeah, just like enough is enough. And I love how the last couple of games, like it's in the third quarter, he's just like, I want to have a rest in the fourth. I would like to dictate that this game is over right now, and I'm going to do so with my play at all levels. And he's like, you know, he's still making reads and he's still like dishing the ball out. And we'll get to like how much improved the kick out options in Peyton Pritchard and Derek White and KP have been over the last sort of 10 to 15 games. We'll get to that in a bit, but just the fact that the reliability of that part of his game has been cranked up by the fact that the guys are honoring his passes and turning his potential assists into actual assists. Love to see that as well. So if you're a Celtics fan, if you're a JT fan, which we all are here, obviously, we're having a great fucking time at the moment. So thank you, Brandon Jennings. Anything else stand out to you from this one? There was one little nugget of Baylor Shireman towards the end of the first quarter where like we did turn the game around a little bit towards the end of the first, and it wasn't with our shooting at that point, but like he came in, he was sliding his feet, he was sort of forcing turnovers to some degree. I kind of thought like I liked what I saw from him. Again, am I clutching at straws here, Spoonie? Feel free to correct me here.
Okay, I agree. His defense was not as bad as I was expecting last night. I actually thought he did a pretty solid job defensively. What does he do on offense? Like the shot's not going in, and he's supposedly like this plus passer, but if no one needs to guard him like at any point and he can't drive on anybody, how is he going to use his passing? Like he had literally multiple times where he would take 3 dribbles and then he would turn all the way around away from the hoop and just give the ball to Jason Tatum. Like that's
Wouldn't you do the same
Baylor.
thing?
No, yeah, like know your role, buddy. But I just like he just has a really long way to go to me to be like an actual NBA player. But the defense not being a disaster is a huge step in the right direction. I will say that. That turnaround was all Peyton Pritchard. He came in the game and he played with energy, he played with force, and he was moving the ball around like crazy, man. Like he was really awesome. Even if he wasn't scoring, which I think was kind of a unique way for Pritchard to change the game. Like he started getting up at the point of attack, playing really hard, really physical defense, and diming people up. And I just thought Shireman got to come in with Pritchard, but like the fact that Shireman didn't undermine the way Pritchard was playing is, I think, a positive, which might be the most backhanded compliment I've ever given anyone.
We'll take it. Us on Shireman Island, we'll take what we can get. But look, through his defense, I think there are signs, and like that's how you're going to get on the court for Joe Mazzulla and previously Brad Stevens. So the fact that I think foundationally for the Celtics as a team and like for players to get minutes, like it starts with your defense. And I think you could probably point to a slight uptick in Shireman's defense there. But Your reaction to me even saying his name tells me that we need to move on from that. So let's do that.
Really
Anything
quick.
else? Sure.
Hold on. Brian in the chat says Baylor shut down Duncan Robinson. I tweeted out a clip or two of him doing a really good job on Duncan Robinson. So that's, again, great sign. Yeah.
And we can leave it there.
Dude, Terry Rozier is so bad now. What happened? Like,
Is
what
that where
happened? He's
careers go to
awful.
die now in Miami? I don't know
Yeah,
what
I
else to
think
attribute it
so.
to.
Like, he was awful last night. Like, it almost felt like maybe, he's been known to have some action on some of these games at this point. Like, it was bad, dude. Like, and it doesn't look like physically he's any worse. He just really looks disinterested in playing basketball. He's at 40% from the floor this year. From the floor. That is so bad.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about on this show through the Celtics lens, like it's difficult to manufacture motivation, and Scary Terry always kind of seemed like a bit of a vibesman in that sense. He needed the big moments to sort of propel him into to find the best version of himself, and like he's not getting that for a 500 Miami team that's sort of been burdened with this whole Jimmy Butler situation, and everything's running through Tyler Hero when he is on the court. I was kind of surprised in that sense, like without Hero playing, like you would kind of expect a little bit more impact from Terry Rozier, but I don't know what's going on there. It seems like we've seen the best of Scary Terry at this point.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. But I don't know. I was just shocked. I haven't watched a lot. I hate the Heat. Like, I can't watch them.
Yeah.
I can't flip on a neutral Heat game. Like, I just find it as a chore to watch them play basketball. So it was just shocking to me because he was good for them last year, and it has all fallen off a cliff for him. So it's kind of a shame, even though Terry was never my favorite Celtic, to be honest. But
hate to see it. Trouble down in Miami, but JT clearly loves being there. The sunshine sort of exudes through him, and he's on the court play. So we love to see that. So Scary Terry, definitely not back. The Boston Celtics, they might be back, Spoonie. They might be back. I know we've sort of both gone off in separate directions and gathered stats. Obviously, there's a whole eye test anecdotal element to this as well, which we'll get to. But from your perspective, from your research coming into this show, Spoonie, what to you dictates that the Celtics are indeed back?
Okay, number one thing for me is I just feel like the way they're playing offense is a lot more intentional and a lot more unselfish recently. So the last 15 games, they're 10-5, right? All that we were lamenting this 500 basketball, how terrible it is. All of a sudden, they're on a 10-5 stretch. That's like a high 50s win pace. Like, they're fine. They're fine. They were loafing it. But what we always were going back to during that stretch was like, are they developing bad habits? And I felt, especially offensively, with the way they were playing, was just like, give KP a post up, and like nobody moves off ball, and like he pounds the rock 5 times and he flips up a bullshit mid-range jumper. They are back to moving the ball. They're back to making the right read. They're getting in and out of cuts really hard. They're setting really good, strong screens again. Over the last 15 games, they're first in assist to turnover ratio, and their pass percentage on drives is up 2%, and the number of passes is up by 5, which is not a large number, but the only way to end a possession when you have the ball that's not a pass is either by a turnover, getting fouled, or shooting, right? So, like, that's 5 times you don't shoot. And that, like, over the course of a game can matter. That is passing up 5 times you pass up a mediocre shot for a better shot. And that all just goes to like the mindset of the way they're playing on offense. To me, it's like, this is the Celtics I know and love. This is the team we all fell in love with last year. They're back. Like, they had so many awesome cuts last night. So many, like, Luke had like a high-low pass to KP that was like so filthy and beautiful. And they're back to like when I was tweeting out clips of like that 5 pass possessions where nobody takes a dribble, and I'm like, wow, the Celtics are ruining basketball. I didn't tweeted one of those out in like 2 months, and they're back to doing that stuff. So for me, that is the number one thing, like the way they're moving the ball, the way they're playing offense.
Yeah, it's night and day as well, because it felt like when KP came back, the directive was like, get him the ball on the block no matter what, even if the passing angle, the post-entry pass isn't there. And to a similar degree with JB as well, we're just kind of force-feeding him in these positions where, for whatever reason, the defense was such. Maybe they were fronting him in the post. Maybe they were bringing shading another defender over. Like the looks just weren't there. And now they're identifying whether or not the pass is there, like in 0.5 seconds. And if it's not there, they're moving the ball, they're swinging it, and they're finding another point of attack. And that is just such a huge difference, because that, if you pause for longer than a second in those situations, you allow the defense to sort of rest for a moment, to gather themselves, to collect themselves, and understand, what offensive strategy they're defending, I suppose. Where if you just make those split-second decisions, which they're now fully back into doing, it makes such a difference, and their offense doesn't get bogged down. So you'll have to see it. You mentioned the last 15 games, 38.5% from three on 45 attempts per game. That's the fourth highest efficiency on the second highest frequency over those last 15 games. They therefore, with that combination of efficiency and frequency, lead the league in 3-point makes per game. And they're also leading the league, and stop me if you just touched on this, in turnover efficiency, as in the least amount of turnovers per game, 11.3. First in opponent points off of turnovers, and seventh in charges taken. And I feel like for a while now, charges taken hasn't been like an element of defense that we've really been able to celebrate. They're sort of just more taking less risks overall defensively, and like staying true to just like keeping in front of your guy has been, really a more sustainable, successful long-term method of playing defense. But charges are fucking exciting, and seventh in the league over those last 15 games, which I think is, maybe a fringe indicator of the Celtics being back, but it's an additional symptom of their overall being backness, Spoonie, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's absolutely a symptom. And I think it goes to like taking a charge sucks. Like you get hit hard, you smack against the ground, and when you are coasting and you don't really feel like taking a whack in a game against the Hornets in January, you are not going to take a charge. So the fact that they're now again willing to take a charge, to me, is more indication that like they know it's time to like get their shit together and actually play both ends appropriately. And charges can be a big part of that. We missed Blake Griffin with the charges. He was a master. I'm pretty sure he took more charges in like 600 minutes than any Celtics has since, including all the seasons. But yeah, and like defensively, the charges matter because it's a turnover, and it's generally a turnover against someone who is getting downhill and compromising your defense. So it's an extraordinarily valuable turnover, and it racks up a foul on the guy you took the charge on, who is usually a pretty damn good player. Super important, and it makes guys think when they're getting downhill, shit, I can't get out of control, I can't go too fast, I can't dart to the rim here, I got to take my time, allows the defense to catch up. So with that in mind, two big things they've been doing defensively. They're second in over the last 15 games in defensive field goal percentage within 6 feet, so they're protecting the rim like crazy, and they've allowed the 10th most 3-point attempts. So that, which is not elite, but it's good. So not only are they shutting people's water off around the rim completely, they're also limiting the number of threes that teams take. What does that mean? It means you're forcing teams into the mid-range to get their points, and that's extremely difficult. I just did a Hubie Brown, like, what does that mean?
I love it, man. I love that so much.
Shout out to the legend. So, like, if you can limit 3-point attempts and protect the rim, that is the foundation of an elite defense, and they've been the third best defense per NBA.com in the last 15 games. No surprise.
Yeah, dude, it's so like KP so effective at defending the rim, and like I don't even want to talk about how healthy and like solid like his base has looked, because I think we all know it, and we all know that we should just not talk about it for obvious reasons, jinxy reasons, superstitious reasons. So I'll leave that there. But then Luke coming in off the bench as well, and like completely holding his own at defending the rim, and him himself has been so aggressive. Not to mention offensively, I know you and Jake touched on it recently, but like he's now looking at the rim. He like soared in for a beautiful dunk, like the beautiful bird, the Cornish game hand that he is, which you love to see. So he's dialing up the intensity on both ends as well. But yeah, especially around defending the rim, you love to see that. And the fact that like that aspect of our defense is not taking a rest at the same time as KP is on the bench is huge. And we all know sort of the switchability that Al Horford brings defensively as a big also. So are you a believer that it all like hums off of or is all based off the defense. So like the defensive improvements are sort of the first signs I think that we started to see in this turnaround of the Celtics like appearing as though they're back. And then lo and behold, suddenly the shooting is back up. Like I said, 38.5% from three in the last 15 games on 45 attempts. Are you a believer that like that is as a result of the defensive uptick?
I don't know. Part of me kind of so offense and defense are not mutually exclusive. They're related, right? You get a stop. The points per possession for like every single team in the NBA is higher when you get a stop or you get a turnover because you get out in transition and semi-transition. So you're probably generating better shots when you play good defense. So I think that's some of it. To me, I think a big part of it is just like they're finally playing basketball again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that's stupid, but what's the anomaly? They look like the best team in basketball for the first 25 games of the year. They're starting to look like the best team in basketball for the last 15 games. And they were easily the best team in basketball the entirety of last season, including the playoffs. And then they were kind of mediocre for a month and a half. Like, which, you know, what's the anomaly, right? They know how to do this. They know how to play the right way on both ends. And they're back to actually doing that. But certainly there's less variance in playing good defense than there is on like you might just not make shots. And yes, like there's some of like maybe your opponent will just make good, you know, make tough shots. But I would rather bet on like us forcing teams into the mid range. If we force teams into the mid range, even if we're missing our open threes, we have a very good opportunity to win that game. If we are not playing particularly good defense, then we are like kind of entirely reliant on shooting variance to win that game. Mm-hmm. So the defense, it's sort of like the baseline of performance. You need to play this level of defense to be an elite team. And then the offense being as good as it's been is the cherry on top. It's what makes the Celtics so unstoppable. So I buy that theory. I just don't know if I totally buy it. Is that a good enough cop out for you, Ben?
No, like I think that's honestly perfect because it's like it's why it's an ongoing conversation. Like no one is sure like exactly if if an uptick in defenses can be the catalyst for an uptick offensively, at least in terms of efficiency. But you know, if you are forcing teams into low percentage mid-range looks, you're grabbing the rebound and then like getting out in transition and attacking in transition. Like I do believe that you generate offensive rhythm in the process, and then later in the game as it gets into clutch time, you get into your half-court offense and you've maintained that rhythm. I do believe there is a correlation there. I have nothing statistically to back that up, but you know, I'm a big believer in the basketball gods. I'm a big believer in the ball finds energy, and I guess I'm a believer of the fact that that energy typically originates from the defense. So defense has improved. Offense has subsequently improved, whether you believe that those two things are connected or not. But the fact is both of them have dramatically improved, and the Celtics are now winning. Per Cleaning the Glass, this is the last 2 weeks. You know, I like to reach into my Cleaning the Glass last 2 weeks draw here. 5th in point differential, 7th overall in offense, 4th overall in defense with a 6-1 record. So it's been a good couple of weeks. February has been good to us. January fucking sucked. And February so far, touch wood, looks good. Other things eye test wise, and I guess I'll throw this question at you, Spoonie. Like there was a lot of talk about whether KP was at fault of kind of like slowing down the team on both ends while they tried to reintegrate him. And we talked about some of those forced post-entry passes. To me, it seems like KP is like fully reintegrated now to the point where they've sort of stopped forcing it and he's really contributing on both ends. Do you see like that aspect of things being part of the catalyst for the Celtics improving?
Yeah, it feels like the KP post-up is now our safety valve if we don't get a better shot.
Back to how it should be.
Yeah, right. As opposed to like, here's the first and only action we're running on this possession, which is how it felt. Like, you're right. They were force feeding him when he came back, and it led to some ugly ass possessions, in my opinion. I also think he's just getting off the ball quicker if it's not there or if the double comes. And dudes are cutting off of his post-ups. They've had so many beautiful cuts off KP post-ups in the last couple games. Like, he had one last night where Derek's in the slot. KP gets the ball. He takes a couple dribbles. He does that like fake turn, shoulder swag. Derek's guy helps. Derek slot cut, hits White. Corner help comes. White doesn't even he doesn't dribble. He just catches. Ooh, shit. Corner kick to Horford. Wide open three. And that's the type of possession we weren't really seeing initially when KP came back, but now it's become sort of a natural function of the offense as opposed to like so methodically intentional as it was at the beginning. And hey, imagine that we're shooting 50% on post-ups before the last 15 games. Now we're at 58% over the last 15 games.
Wow.
Turns out when you deploy it appropriately, it's a hell of a lot more effective too. And then defensively, KP just seems a lot less lost. I think he was just getting into game shape. Like, it's fucking hard to play NBA defense, man. It is really hard. And he just looks really comfortable on the defensive end now. Like, when to get out, when to stay home. His drop coverage has always been amazing. It's still amazing. So getting him integrated, getting him playing at a high level, that is the key to the championship, in my opinion. So it's great to see.
Yeah, and at the same time, we still dominate the Knicks without him as well. So, like, holistically, it's clearly applying to the whole team. It's just, this whole pod is about celebrating the fact that the Celtics kind of, like, look like themselves again, and, like, what a fucking relief that is.
Yes.
I'm a simple man. This is a simple take, no hot take here, but, like, it clearly all comes down to Jason Tatum to some degree, I think, is probably a common opinion. When he's aggressive, the floor is spaced, like, properly around him. This team is so damn good. Like, he will get downhill. He absolutely will get downhill, it seems, no matter who is guarding him. And if a double comes, or even if a defender shades over even a little bit, he's like just picking that the fuck apart. Like, better right now than I think he maybe ever has in his career. He's up around 5 assists per game in the last 15 games, closer to 6, really, looking at the stats here. He's shooting 44% from 3 in the past 5 games, over 10 attempts. And like, we'll get to the other guys, but the kick out options around him, I mentioned it before, are almost back to being perfect. Like, whenever Derek White screens for Jason Tatum and JT gets the switch onto the smaller defender, and then both defenders kind of naturally stick with Jason Tatum because they fucking have to. That kick out to an open Derek is like fully back, and he's capitalizing so well on that. And then the same with KP. A kick out to a KP 30-foot jumper feels like one of the better looks in the league right now. Pritchard, Hauser, like all elite kick out options, which are now finally firing on all cylinders and actually like capitalizing on those attempts. And then when we're doing all of that with a healthy Jaylen Brown in the corner as well, like just playing off of that action closer to the top of the key and either cutting or waiting in some capacity for the defense to like shade off of him. That's the magic formula, man. That's what we're looking for. Yes. And JB's been like off a little bit lately, like some absences for whatever reasons, health-wise or whatever it might be. But like, we know that's there somewhere. And as this team is ticking up in sort of all facets, hopefully Jaylen Brown is the next aspect of that to improve, because once you get that, you get like this elite team that starts to outshine even the Cavs and the Thunders of the world.
Yeah, for sure. And I think JB is really important too. He's had enough games over this last, like, since January for me that I still feel like extraordinarily confident in Jaylen. Like, there was this one Bulls game a couple weeks ago where he was just like powering every single player in front of him straight to the rim and dominating physically. Like, it's in there. He's clearly dealing with some like knock or injury that he's got to get over. And I think it's like, I would just rest him until after the All-Star break at this point. We are close enough. There's really no point. Like, we obviously play well enough to win games without him. And everyone being healthy is like goal number 1. So I would sit him down. But yeah, I feel like Jaylen's defense has really taken a step up recently. And that to me is like the number 1 indicator of like where he's at mentally. And like whether or not we're going to get evil Jaylen. Like, if he's locked in defensively, I feel like the odds evil Jaylen makes an appearance from the nether regions of hell are pretty low.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's been doing a really good job defensively, and he's just Tatum's just been so dominant. It's like, what are you gonna do? Not give him the ball? Like, no, Jason Tatum's getting the ball. Sorry.
Totally.
So he's kind of a victim of just how well Tatum's been playing too, but he's obviously extraordinarily important on both ends. So you're right, man. Like, JB against a rotating defense is terrifying, and it will happen. And the White Tatum pick and roll being back is, oh, baby.
Oh, yes.
So beautiful.
It comforts me in my daily life to know that is working again. It's so damn good. Any concerns on the JT minutes load? It seems like he's basically calling the shots as far as like how like many games he plays and then how long throughout those games he plays. Like, he's playing like entire multiple quarters in a single game, which is kind of terrifying. I did see a post on Reddit. I was trying to find it before we went live here, but wasn't able to find it, where someone posted the correlation of his high minutes, but then like the distance traveled metric per game.
Yeah.
And even though his minutes were like crazy up, his distance traveled per game, I don't know if there's anything to take from this, Booty, was like relatively low to his peers taking a similar minutes load. So maybe they're all geniuses, Booty, and we're not privy to it, but maybe he is like managing his load, for lack of a better term, while also playing low minutes, or high minutes rather.
So it was on the Discord, shout out Fade the Public, where he posted on the Discord the fact that Jason Tatum has not traveled much distance despite playing a lot of minutes.
Is there anything there?
I think so, man. This is like LeBron used to be in this stat too, where he would have like way up there in minutes, but have way down on distance traveled. So I think part of it is just how we play defense too, because we switch so much that like you're kind of just like, oh, that guy's coming here, I'll take him. You take my guy who's going there too. So
yeah,
we don't really ask Tatum to like fly around against a Duncan Robinson type and get around a bunch of screens. And the way he plays offense too is very deliberate. It just is like, how often does he like not go past the 3-point line because he runs a pick and pop with Derek White, gets doubled, and just drops it off to Derek White for a wide open three. So I think there's absolutely something to that, man. Like dudes who are running up and down the court nonstop a lot, that takes a lot out of you. So the fact that Tatum gets to play slightly lazy and still be this dominant, I think is one of the reasons he can handle this minute load. But I am firmly with Jason Tatum. Whatever, dude, just play as many minutes as you want, because like he doesn't get worse. You know what I mean? So, like he's an Iron Man. It's right. It's crazy. So like, fuck it. I'm not worrying about Tatum minutes. I'm gonna continue to hyper focus on Al Horford minutes. That's it.
And like you can go to work in your regular daily life and like clock in and be there, but kind of like take her easy a little bit and like do the bare minimum. So I believe Jason Tatum is doing that to full effect, but still getting wins on the board, which you love to see. Drew Holiday, like to round out this segment of the Celtics being back, any concerns there? If I had to guess, like we always talk about Occam's Rozier, the simplest explanation is the most likely one. Like probably just taking it super easy, being super precautious with Drew Holiday, given like all the off-season load he had with the Olympics and everything too, and playing late into the postseason. His age, like you'd have to think they're just being super cautious with him, or do you think there's something to the shoulder injury?
I don't know,
he
man.
is old.
His shooting has not been great.
Yeah.
And he is at the age where like decline would not be shocking. Especially like Drew's been, I think he was a 1-year guy at UCLA. So he's been in the NBA for an extraordinarily long time too, like since he was 19. So
yeah,
he's got a lot of miles. So here's the thing. I'm not going to worry about Drew's performance until we get to the playoffs and he plays poorly. Because right now it's like, we don't really need him. He can get healthy. Be cautious. I do think they're being overly cautious with it. If it were the NBA Finals, he'd be playing right now, like no doubt about it. But we should be cautious. But I also would not be shocked if like a slightly better version of what we're getting right now is just what Drew Holiday is going forward. You know, which is scary.
And may very well be enough. But remember last year, he kind of sucked in the first round against the Heat as well. Like it even took him in. And then he was amazing. So I'll sign up for that again this year. But it's a tougher one to drum up a positive spin on based on like how he's looked when he has been on the court and how often he's been off the court. When we come back, Torrey Craig or blank, we're going to talk about who he might slot in between in the Celtics rotation, if anyone. He's been awesome on the bench as well, so he might just be sidelined to be the celebration guy with the sparkly hoodie like he had on in Miami last night. But we'll get to that in a second. First, a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks.
All-Star Weekend is almost here, and Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching your favorite players during the game and the Saturday night events like the 3-point contest. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. The Celtics have been machines lately, so I've been hammering more on various Celtics. One of my favorite mores isn't Peyton Pritchard points, not the triple P. No. The Peyton Pritchard assists more. He has been diming people up. Give me Peyton, more assists. You've heard of Jason Tatum. He's on a mission to go more on points every night. So get in on that action as well. The best part is Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Dude, what a day for Prize Picks to get such a quality ad read from one Wayne Spooney. Well done, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome, Prize Picks.
That's right. Cut us that check now, please. We're doing this for years. All right, Torrey Craig or Spooney, I know you've got some takes and some stats. You've probably done a little bit more research on Torrey Craig than I have. Where does he sit in the rotation? So I think this is a good way to approach it. We start with sort of the bottom end of the rotation, and we talk about, like, you basically tell me to stop when he fits in around that level of the rotation. So starting at the bottom, Baylor Scheiman got some minutes last night. Very much a break glass in case of emergency where you need a wing, and maybe we've got some injuries. Jaylen Brown in the case of last night. Torrey Craig surely going to usurp Baylor Scheiman in the rotation.
Yeah, definitely. So
Got to start somewhere with this.
I'm gonna say stop when I think like the name you just said is above Torrey Craig in the rotation.
Okay.
Right?
So Baylor Scheiman.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Drew Peterson.
I like Drew better than Torrey Craig.
Okay. I knew if I paused long enough, you would say something.
I can't help myself when it's Drew.
Drew P.
But
Love it.
like right now, like Drew Peterson is just not a positive NBA player. Although you could make the argument neither is Torrey Craig, since the Bulls have been 7 points per 100 worse with him on the court in the last 3 years. But
Yeah.
I digress. He's over Drew Peterson for sure.
A little teaser of the stats that Spoonie's going to drop on us in a second. Jordan Walsh. Sam Hauser.
I mean, stop, obviously.
Okay,
He's not
good,
above
good.
Sam Hauser. I think, like, there's an argument that Jordan Walsh makes sense to play over Torrey Craig from a longer vision standpoint. Like, you need development minutes for Jordan Walsh. I do think Craig is better-ish than Jordan Walsh right now, although I've watched a lot of his possessions recently on Crowd Scout. Shout out Eric Weiss today. And his defense is like not good. Like I feel like he has this like defensive reputation. He is really slow laterally. Anytime he got switched onto a guard, he got absolutely burnt. He's really chases the play a lot and is behind the play a ton. He just plays really hard. So I feel like that like tricks people into thinking he's a good defender, because I had the vision of him being like a solid, physical, like PJ Tucker-y type defender. He's not.
That bothers me and concerns me, because I'd fully bought into the Jordan Walsh defensive identity, and like no matter how the shot's going or not going, we'll always have Jordan Walsh's defense. So that is surprising to me.
Craig.
Oh,
Craig
apologies.
Is not a good defender. No, Walshy is a much better defender than Torrey Craig. Sorry, that I was trying to make the point that like Walshy makes sense developmentally, and I think you can make the argument like if you need defense, Walsh is the guy, not Torrey Craig. Like Torrey Craig, I had visions of him being like a physical, solid defensive player, and watching like his clips today, I was like, holy shit, he's kind of bad at this.
Okay, I'm so glad that's the road you're going down.
Walshy,
That's
baby. Come on.
Okay, thank God. No, that's my fault. That's me looking at my work phone going off while we're out live
okay,
here
I
on
get
YouTube.
it.
So that's totally my fault. Yeah, I mean, I'm sad for Jordan Walsh with the Torrey Craig acquisition, because I feel like Torrey Craig might get in ahead of Jordan Walsh because of his experience. He's 34 years old. He's played on like some pretty good Nuggets teams as well back in the past. Like he does have some pretty decent experience at multiple levels. And I feel like for that reason, he will slot in sort of between Hauser and Jordan Walsh there. But obviously, you know, we own, I think, most of the real estate on Walsh Island at the moment. We've brought in a lot of infrastructure over the last few years. Agriculturally, we're making a lot of ground there. We're growing seeds and corn, and we're brewing our own beer, and we're really thriving there as a civilization on Walsh Island. And for it to be hit by a meteor in the form of Torrey Craig is absolutely devastating to our people there. So I'm concerned there. So do you think that's definitely going to be the case, that Torrey Craig's going to slot in there and is going to be goodbye Walshy for now?
I think so, man. Here's the thing. Torrey Craig is like, his jumper looks like shit. It's kind of almost looks broken. He like flicks it kind of. But he shot he's shooting 44% on wide open threes this year, and he shot 40.5 on them last year, 38.3% on open threes last year. Like, if he is open, it's going in. And that alone is such a valuable skill on this team. He, like I said, his defense is bad. He's one of the worst ISO defenders in the NBA last year, like 20th percentile. But I think the positive he gives offensively with just the shooting and spacing he provides probably outweighs what Jordan, like, because Walshy, he's all over the place from like a performance standpoint. Like, he might be awesome for 5 minutes, or he might kill you for 5 minutes, and there's not really any way to know. And I think Torrey Craig's sort of baseline performance is going to be a lot more less, doesn't fluctuate nearly as much. So I think Joe will prefer that to Walshy. But like Craig is sort of like O'Shea with worse defense but can shoot. Yeah, I feel like he's that level of player, and I feel like O'Shea would probably slot in ahead of Jordan Walsh, right?
Yeah, I would say so for similar reasons, just the experience and the sort of the defensive consistency. Like, Walsh, might have a bit more flair defensively, maybe more capable of like a isolated highlight play, but O'Shea probably just going to get a little bit more of the like consistent fundamentals, moving your feet, switching like with fluidity, staying in front of your guy, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think with Torrey Craig, he's going to slot in there in front of Walshy as well, unfortunately, because I probably a little bit, this is not conducive to like winning chips, but like kind of ride or die with Walshy, unfortunately. Yeah, right. So yeah, but Torrey Craig, 6'5", 221 pounds, those are solid dimensions, man. Like, that's a good NBA wing archetype to have out there. I think if you look at his last game, this is me really clutching at straws. His last game in Chicago before he was let go, 18 points, 5 boards, 5 of 7 from 3. We won't talk about the defense because there was none. But certainly capable of scoring in spurts. And you mentioned his efficiency on wide open looks. Like, that's what he's going to get, ideally, as a Boston Celtics role player. Guess how many turnovers Torrey Craig had this year in his 9 games played?
Like 3?
Zero turnovers.
Okay,
yeah, look at
If he gets the ball, he shoots it, essentially. So like, he's not going to turn over a lot. I did notice the Bulls used him as a pick and pop partner for Giddey, and it seemed to generate like pretty wide open pick and pops for him. And that's with Giddey, who you kind of like don't have to get out on, you know? Yeah. So I could see him having some like serious value, similar to how we use like Pritchard or Hauser when they set the screen on ball and just kind of float. And if you double Tatum, it's wide open and it's probably going in. So he doesn't do really anything else on offense, though, like at all. I watched like the majority of shots he took this year. I saw him make 2 layups. So like, there's not a lot of, he is like a way worse version of Sam Hauser, essentially.
Well, yeah. And even if you're playing offense, defense with your subs, like, wouldn't you still leave Hauser out there? Isn't Hauser still like the superior defender as well?
Yes. Yeah, like not even close, man.
Yeah. So, all right, Torrey Craig, we're very happy to have you. Not entirely sure what you're doing here, but we're very, very glad you're on board. Like I mentioned, immaculate vibes on the bench in his first game on the bench as a Boston Celtics. So excited to see him out there. And who knows what kind of spark Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla can get out of him. That's the curse of every fan base, is like, now he's with us. Now we'll see his true potential. Yeah.
I feel like I was harsh. He plays hard, which I think has value, right? Yeah. And he makes threes. Like, that's an NBA player. How good of one is still to be seen. It's hard to play defense on that fucking Bulls team too, because nobody plays defense. So
totally,
maybe he'll be better kind of in our system around better defenders too. But he is worse than Sam Hauser, like decidedly.
Mm-hmm. Probably at least, if nothing else, plugs the biggest like depth deficiency we had at the wing spot there. So I think if nothing else, like there's a bit of a safety valve and having another guy with solid dimensions at the wing position, like I said earlier. So love to see that. Welcome aboard, Torrey Craig, or Craig as we would call you here in Australia. Anything else on Spoonie thumbs downs it? Anything else on anything we've discussed, Spoonie, before we wrap this one up?
I don't think aren't you just like, I'm finally glad I feel excited again to watch Celtics games, because there was a little time there in January it was like, fuck man, it kind of not a chore, but I was not like, hell yeah, I can't wait to watch this team play basketball. And that was rare over the last couple of years. So it's nice to be back.
Yeah, there's just no better feeling in life than the spark that like a well-connected, well-playing Celtics team gives you. I think I mentioned me trying to appear normal while listening to the game at work yesterday. Like, it just is such a good feeling. And, it draws you back in to watch every minute, every possession of every game when they're playing that way. So it's good to see. It's also, personally, I'm very happy to be back on the podcast as well. I've had a crazy like work schedule over the past 6 months, and I was just in London for a few weeks, and now back home, consistent work from home schedule as well. So hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of me on the pod as well, and hopefully Friday it's going to be all three of us with Jake as well. So that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow Jake Eisenberg is going to be back with instant reactions right after the Spurs game, then Celtics late night, potentially after the Garden Report wraps. We might scrap that in favor of us just all jumping on as a threesome the following day. Wayne Spoonie, love your work, man. Until next time, go Celts.